Alex Jones and Tucker Carlson did a segment about President Obama and how he reacts to riots and civil unrest.
And so it's just crazy to see a U.S. president betting everything on class warfare, divide and conquer. And it's surreal, though, to see them trying to sell a federalization of police, really a new soft civil war, in Al Sharpton's new words. It's just crazy. It's crazy. Why do you think they're betting so much on this?
Because ethnic politics, identity politics work really well. It's the fastest way to get people out to vote. It's the fastest way to divert their attention from your own policy failures. It's also really dangerous. I mean, I've been to a lot of countries, and the one thing they mostly have in common is really, really deep ethnic divides, which are permanent and dangerous and flare up into violence from time to time. See, the thing about a political debate is that it can be resolved. If you and I disagree on an issue, you may convince me or I convince you, or the issue goes away and we can be friends again. If we're divided by ethnicity, that's not resolvable. That's permanent. We're born that way. We're never going to change. And so we're always going to hate each other, and our children will hate one another, and their children will do the same. And, you see how civil wars happen. And so the problem with the administration's position, which is from day one it's been, violence is bad, but I kind of see their point, is it's in effect making excuses for and therefore encouraging that kind of behavior. It's scary. I mean, they categorize people by race in a way that, you can't even imagine. 30 years ago, you would have said, wait a second, that's like Nazi stuff.
Did you catch that at the end? Tucker Carlson is saying that the way President Obama acts when it comes to class warfare and race, it's like Nazi stuff. He said Obama is encouraging violence and riots. Now, I'm going to come back to that point in a second, but just real quick, look at some of the other things they said. Alex Jones kicked it off by saying, Obama's betting everything on class warfare, and he goes on to say, and a new civil war. Yeah, Obama's pushing for a new civil war, I'm sure. And the point in the middle from Tucker Carlson, I think, was very telling about the difference between the way liberals think and conservatives think. Because he brought up the fact that in his mind, ethnic disagreements cannot be resolved. If there's hatred based on ethnicity, he goes, well, what are you going to do? You can't change that. Really? No, you're right. You can't change that. That's how you think. Any open-minded liberal person would think, oh, people hate each other simply because of their ethnicity? That's easily fixable. Just don't teach this group to hate that group, and in a few generations, problem solved. Problem solved. If you're raised in a household that doesn't hate the other group because of their ethnicity, you're not going to hate that group because of their ethnicity. But see, Tucker Carlson, again, is a classic example of projection. This is how he views the world. Well, I can't help but hate those people because of their ethnicity. So he just thinks that that's how everybody else thinks, too. That's not how everybody thinks. That's not how everybody thinks. I grew up in a very diverse environment. So I think it's weird if it's not a diverse environment. I love when there's a mix of ethnicities. Very telling. But again, let's come back to that point about violence and riots. Tucker Carlson says, well, look at the way Obama talks about Baltimore, for example, and what happened there with Freddie Gray and then the protests and the riots. He says, it's clear to see that Obama is encouraging violence and riots. Now, here's the part where I shut up, and you get to hear straight from Obama himself what his true position is, and you can determine, juxtapose the two in your mind, what Tucker Carlson thinks Obama thinks and what Obama really thinks. Let's take a look.
With respect to Baltimore, let me make a couple of points. First, obviously our thoughts continue to be with the family of Freddie Gray. Understandably, they want answers. And DOJ has opened an investigation. It is working with local law enforcement to find out exactly what happened, and I think there should be full transparency and accountability. Second, my thoughts are with the police officers who were injured in last night's disturbances. It underscores that that's a tough job, and we have to keep that in mind. And my hope is that they can heal and get back to work as soon as possible. Point number 3, there's no excuse for the kind of violence that we saw yesterday. it is counterproductive. When individuals get crowbars and start prying open doors to loot, they're not protesting. They're not making a statement. They're stealing. When they burn down a building, they're committing arson. And they're destroying and undermining businesses and opportunities in their own communities that rob jobs and opportunity from people in that area. So it is entirely appropriate that the mayor of Baltimore, who I spoke to yesterday, and the governor, who I spoke to yesterday, work to stop that kind of senseless violence and destruction.
They are essentially straw-manning President Obama. They have this caricature in their mind of what he is, and then they just assign all the things that they think he is onto him, even though he clearly came out and said the opposite of everything that they think he said and believes.